Well, now we can talk to Thom Brooks, a Professor of Law and Government at Durham University in the UK and Dean of Durham Law School. Thanks for taking time to speak to us here on this historic day. We don't seem to end repeating saying that. Are you surprised at all by this verdict?
I think the only thing I'm surprised about in the verdict is that it's unanimous. I thought that this verdict was going to happen since the Scottish decision. It seemed that 5 weeks extraordinary hasn't happened for 300 years or so. There seemed to be no justification for doing it, certainly not to write a speech for the Queen to read out about his legislative plans. So the only reason was to frustrate Parliament and prevent members of Parliament from defeating the government on anything the government wanted to do and scrutinizing its plans. So I think it's but that's a unanimous verdict is really quite something. I think enormous credit must go to Joe Maughan, who was lead barrister for the Scottish case, and for Lord Pennock, who I think in legal world is the Messi of barristers.
As far as President is concerned, we're really into uncharted territory here. What could this mean for UK law going forward? I mean, or even does Boris Johnson have the recourse to go to perhaps the European Courts of Justice?
Well, it certainly would be extraordinary if the guy who wants to leave the European Union so that the European Court of Justice can't have any further hold on the UK legal system would appeal to the ECJ to get at it. I don't think that would be a card he could play. I don't think it would be something he would even try to do, though he's tried to do so much else. I think right now he's really in a real pickle. The Prime Minister has been found to make an unlawful request to the Queen, that he has done something kind of unconstitutional, that he has tried to silence Parliament from criticizing the executive when the executive didn't like what Parliament had to say about its plans. I think it's really uncharted territories. In normal times, the Prime Minister would have resigned at the mere suggestion that they would so instruct or make a request to the monarch. I think if Boris Johnson doesn't resign today, I think the calls for him to do so will only increase. He's effectively really powerless right now, and will be seen not only as weak in the UK, but will be. I was doing interviews for the American broadcasters this morning. He's being seen as the weakest in generation Prime Minister outside of the UK as well. This does not help Britain getting this Brexit deal he claims he is able to deliver, and he's done great damage to the Constitution in so doing.
Well, it remains to be seen, I suppose, whether he is a dead man walking, as you're inferring here. But in terms of what happens now in the process for Brexit, how is that going to work over the next few weeks?
Well, I think that the one thing that Parliament's been has had a consistent majority on, the one thing everyone seems to have largely agreed on, with the exception of Boris Johnson and a few in his cabinet, is that there should be no deal should be taken off the table. So I think that even with the limited time remaining in the proroguing, if it had been allowed to continue, I think Parliament still would have done its utmost to prevent that. So I think that no deal won't be happening. I think the request will be made to the EU now, almost certainly, because there is no new deal for Boris to bring to Parliament. That extension request will have to be made to the EU, and hopefully that will be hopefully from the standpoint of a number of people in Parliament. If that's accepted, then Brexit won't be happening right away. This will be politically catastrophic for the Prime Minister, whose promises do or die pledge on this. He's banked everything on his being someone who can deliver this and would have been stopped. I think it will be catastrophic, very dangerous for his party going into a general election. He's been wanting to do this right now because he feels some wind in his sails. But if he was unable to deliver on the 31st of October, then that would give a lot of wind in the sails instead to the Brexit party. I think it opens up a great big can of worms for the Conservatives, for Boris, who has effectively led them marching, and it would seem potentially right off a cliff. In terms of other things with Parliament, I think it will simply have to meet
Professor of Law and Government. I'm afraid sorry to interrupt you there, but we just got word that we're hearing from the opposition Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn. We're going to cut to him right now.